Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum to Miss Faika and all fellow friends. My name is Siti Nurhidayah Binti Nordin and I will present about RIP in radiographic image evaluation. For RIP, I will present about AP projection and LPO projection. First, for AP projection. Image criteria through AP. The spinous process is visualized at the inferior aspect of its vertebral body. You can see at the C6, C7 or T1. Okay, the spinous process are aligned with the midline of the vertebral body. The distance from the vertebral column to the middle end of the clavicle are equal. And thus the distance from the pedicle to the spinous process are equal on the two sides. For P projection, the radiograph of an AP projection of the rib, we can prove it by the spinous process at T6. Here is visualized inferior aspect of its vertebral body. Second, we can see the clavicle are seen bilaterally at this and this. And last, we can see the T12 of rib. Okay, for positioning, firstly we can see the distance from the vertebral column to the middle end of the clavicle are equal. And second, you can see the distance from the pedicles to the spinous process are equal on the two sides, here and here. Okay, on this slide, we can see clearly where is the spinous process. Okay, this is spinous process, and this is a transverse process, and this is the pedicles. For alignment, first extractive vs film and extractive vs structure. The alignment between extractive and IR and extractive with patient cannot be determined because there is no evidence of collimation on all four sides, four borders of the film. Third, the structure vs film. The alignment between patient is correct because the distance between the central structure to the edge of the film, which is to the left and right, is equal, and the superior to the inferior level is equal. So the centering point of this radiograph cannot be determined because there is no four borders of collimation. So the 7 thoracic vertebra is at the center of the mass, at the center of the exposure factor. Okay, see for collimation, first for superior border, we can see the clavicle, then we can see the apex of lung, then we can see the scapula. Then for the inferior border, we can see T12, diaphragm, and last, the lumbar spine. For the lateral, we can see the scapula, the 12 of rib, and lastly we can see the costophrenic angle. E for exposure factor. First, the KVP used is adequate for penetration and radiograph contrast. This is because the bony cortical line of twin structure, which is transverse process, is visualized, and the thick structure, which is spinous process, also visualized. So no change needed. For the MAS, use is inadequate because too much underexposed. For the Siti, this is because the bony tubercular pattern of thin structure, which is transverse process, cannot be seen, and for the thick structure, which is spinous process, also cannot be seen. So we must increase the opacity by 3 or 4 times. Conclusion, we must increasing the MAS by 100%, then it will increase the opacity only by 2 times. M for markers, we can see there is no markers at this radiograph because this is not the plumber marker, so there is no evidence of an anatomical marker shown in the radiograph. We all know that markers must be put outside the region of the interest in the correct side, either right side or left side. A for aesthetic, the film size is 35/43 is sufficient to demonstrate all the structure of interest. There is no evidence of artifact on the radiograph. N for name. First, the patient name and ID date of examination are not visualized on the radiograph at the appropriate area. The appropriate area for name should be at the top of the border and not be superimposed with structure of interest. Conclusion, for the AP read, the radiograph is not acceptable because there is no patient name, ID, date and place of examination. Second, no correlation and no plumber marker. Next is LPO projection. Image criteria through LPO. First, for axillary rib are demonstrated without superimposition and are located in the center of the exposure field. Second, we can see the anterior rib are located at the lateral edge. And last, we can see the inferior sternum is demonstrated laterally. P for projection. For projection LPO, firstly we can see rib on the side closer to the film are seen entirely. Second, the inferior sternal body is located halfway between the vertebral column and the lateral rib surface. And lastly, we can see the axillary rib are demonstrated without superimposition and are located in the center of the exposure field. P for positioning, we can know that the position is through LPO or not by first an accurate 45-degree oblique position should be demonstrate the axillary rib in profile with the spine shifted away from the area of interest. And second, we can see by axillary rib are laid out and located at the center of collimated field. Third, we can see the inferior sternum is demonstrated literally. And lastly, we can see the anterior are located at the lateral edge. A for alignment for oblique. First, the alignment between restrictive and IR and restrictive with patient cannot be determined because there is no evidence of collimation on all four borders of the film. And last, the structure vs film. The alignment between patients and film is correct because the distance between the central structure to the edge of the film, the left to the right, and superior to the inferior is equal. The centering point of this radiograph is cannot be determined because there is no four borders of collimation. So the 7 thoracic vertebra must at the center of the exposure field. Okay, for projection LPO, C for collimation. From superior border, we can see the clavicle. Second, we can see the apex of lung. And last, we can see the axillary rib demonstrated above the diaphragm. Second, for the lateral border, first we can see clavicle from lateral, inferior sternum, and the diaphragm. For the inferior border, we can see diaphragm, lumbar spine, and 9 through 12 axillary rib demonstrated above the diaphragm. Okay, E for exposure factor. For the LPO, the KPP used is adequate for penetration and contrast. This is because the bony cortical outline of the thin structure, which is anterior rib, is visualized, and the thick structure of posterior rib is visualized, so no change needed. Next, for the MAS use is inadequate because too much underexposed. This is because the bony cervical pattern of the thick structure, which is anterior rib, cannot be seen, and the thick structure of posterior rib also cannot be seen. So we must increase the opacity by 3 or 4 times. The conclusion is we must increase the MS by 100%, then it will increase the opacity only by 2 times. Okay, this is the picture of oblique rib. Okay, this is the anterior and this is posterior rib. Okay, and for markers, in this radiograph, this is not the lumbar marker, so there is no evidence of an anatomical marker shown in the radiograph. Marker must be put outside the region of interest in the correct side, at the right or left side. For aesthetic, the film size for LPO is 3543 is sufficient to demonstrate all structure of interest. There is no evidence of artifact on the radiograph. Okay, and for name, first the patient name and ID, date of examination are not visualized on the radiograph at the appropriate area. The appropriate area for the patient name should be at the top of the border and must not superimpose with the structure of interest. Okay, for the conclusion for LPO, the radiograph is not acceptable because there is no patient names, ID, date, and place of examination, no collimation, and no lumbar marker. Reference, I refer to the Boranger, Haji Nazri books, and Mercury. This is the end of my presentation, and I would like to say sorry if I had a mistake, and thank you to Miss Faika and all video friends, and enjoy. Thank you.